Howdy folks, and welcome to episode number 4. In this video, we're going to try and close out this series of first 4 videos. That began with the lotus flower, which was me watching a movie on Christmas Day, realizing I needed to get back to work at this, and been struggling with it ever since. But we're going to keep soldiering on. So in this one, we're going to close this out with who we are. So in the first one, we were discussing, in essence, where we are in sort of a virtual reality, a matrix, whatever you want to call it, a dream. And that God, whatever that is, exists outside of this space. And then in the second video, we discussed God and a sort of a concept of how to view God, of which we'll kind of go over here again. And then in the third one, we're discussing where we are, this material world, and how it's an image of the eternal world. And now we're going to go over who we are and how that completes this particular viewpoint on the reality of this place. So, the eternal God. I keep having a hard time describing it, so I went ahead and I'm going to read line 1 from book 1 of the Meek book. Perhaps that'll help explain what this image is and sort of like where it came from. You'll see that I'm referring to several names, and that's because I'm drawn from many, many sources from many, many different religions and many teachers throughout history. I think we throughout time always keep coming back to the same basic concept, and I think we just kind of get lost along the way with the different flavors. But at the root, I do believe that all religions, there's only one religion. Well, there's one belief, many religions. But here we go. So there is the source, the rock, the Ancient of Days, the name before names, the Alpha and Omega, the one soul spirit, the Oversoul, the eternal God, boundless light, unmeasurable, unexplorable, omniscient, omnipotent, speciously inert, alone. The eternal God. And the eternal God then eventually generated what I call the conscious God. The consciousness being the left and being bifurcated, just like our brains are, which is the mother and the father. The father being derived from knowledge, and the mother being derived from power. Again, I go into this in episode number 2. And then the conscious God generated the material world. Consciousness generated the material world. This is a really, really important concept moving forward. Oops. And in this material world, this is where we are. We are here, episode number 3. Our body and our brain is the material world. And our left and right hemisphere of our brain is what I consider that's our mind. And it's the thinking portion. And I believe it is completely distinct and separate from your physical brain material part. And we live in a space that has a nature. And it's a running theme that will continue to run through this philosophy as we apply it. There is a nature to the way things are and the way they work. And it's kind of like what a lot of folks are fighting over today, is that we seem to always want to fight nature. It's kind of like what the story of Babel is about. And the whole thing is with the eternal God in the material world, we have the divine image. We are a reflection of a real place. And in this mirrored image, another way to think of it is like from the Christian's perspective, this would be the heaven above and the earth below. Displayed as a beautiful image, as I like to say. So who are we? The whole point of this video. We are first of all, we have a body, and this body is a set of sensors. We have the 5 senses, and they are very well designed for very specific parameters. And this is a key component to this philosophy, is that we believe that we were created within nature to function within this set of parameters. And once we get outside of this set of parameters, say like looking into the heavens above and using things like x-rays that we can't even see, and we need computer models to like generate an image that we can see, or when we go down too small, the same thing happens. We have to have computers to generate an image that makes it something that we can see. And it's through this imagery translation, through a human mind attempting to try and explain what they can't see, what we literally cannot see, into something that we can see, is where the problems lie. We don't understand these things, and part of our nature is we're not meant to. We are here for a certain reason. Whether we know what that reason is or not is sort of irrelevant. But the mind then processes the sensory data, and this is our experiences when coupled with our mind. And then from heaven, this is where, if you want to call it a soul, if you believe in these sorts of things, but I believe there's a direct resonance of what I would consider to be a soul. It resonates from the eternal God. So in heaven, our soul resonates within our body. This is probably the reason for our DNA. It's probably an antenna that is used to recognize who we are. Let's see what I put next. That's right. Your attention as the divine light. And this is how we define reality. So, the eternal God is where the data comes from, the information comes from this space, and consciousness then generated this physical material world that we're in. But this world is not visible. It literally does not exist in a solid state. It's sort of like a particle or a photon. It can exist as a single particle, or it can exist as a wave, and until it is actually seen and actually witnessed, does it become what it is. And that is the world that we live within. This world is like when you go into a room that's completely pitch black. The world in there can be just about anything. And that's what consciousness is doing. It's attempting to create that world in that room. And when we step into the room, that's when the lights come on. That's when everything in the room becomes real. This is where if the tree falls in the woods, doesn't make a sound, comes from. Because if it's not experienced, it doesn't make a sound. The tree isn't even real. The tree isn't even there until consciousness witnesses it. And this closes, that's what we're going to get into next. This closes the circle. So the data is imagined and generated. This is where, like the Hindus say, that we live within a dream. That's because this space is, in essence, almost a dream of the eternal world. But until it is witnessed by consciousness, it genuinely doesn't exist. So if you want to know what the purpose of humanity is and the reason why we are alive, that is it. Nothing exists without the witness. So I'm going to have to shrink my beautiful self down. Forgive me for wearing the same shirt again. It's really cold here in Texas, and this is one of my few Alaska shirts that I have left. Well, let's go ahead and get small. So, as I was explaining, the cycle of how this works, the eternal God is the source, the soil, and then the consciousness will then generate this world. And then when we visually experience it, or not even visually, but once we experience it, this closes the circuit. So you have this flow of energy creating the space. We witness it. That closes the circuit back, making it real. And it is through this experience that generated the third stage of being, which is conscientiousness. So you have, in essence, you have living information that creates consciousness. Consciousness generates the material world. And the material world, once consciously experienced, generates conscientiousness. It's what generates right and wrong, good and evil. I see a lot of people talking about whether God was good or evil, or how could evil exist? How could God, if God is pure good, make evil? In essence, it really didn't exist. It wasn't until this experience, until an experience happened, did conscientiousness happen, generating value. Because there was no value before. There was no experience before. It is our existence that generates these things. Again, the reason why we're here. Ooh, which brings me to this. All the way back to what started it all again. Me making a bunch of terrible videos. I'm going to make myself bigger because that just looks silly. I was watching Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief one, on Christmas, and it was the scene inside the casino where they're eating the lotus flower and lost track of time because they were trying to stop them from completing their mission or whatever it was. Silliness, but the concept is absolutely beautiful. You see, our attention creates the world. And there are people that genuinely wish to distract you and point your attention onto what they want you to see. This has been going on for thousands of years. And this is why it is critical that you regain your ability to focus your attention where you want. Because in this world, this is, at its root, this is what's wrong with the world today, is everyone's attention is no longer controlled by them. And if we are the divine light that illuminates this world, as Jesus would say, you need to be the light that's on the hill. It's slightly different, but it's the same concept. It's just it's a more advanced version, but we are the divine light that illuminates this world. And if we aren't choosing what's illuminated and someone else is choosing, you have to ask yourself, what does that mean? And what does that make you? If you are not choosing what is illuminated and someone else is, what are you? Who are you? And with that, my friends, I will see you on the next one. Until then.